Some stories don't arrive with fireworks. They come in the quiet after a long shift, when the body is still running on training and habit, and the mind is trying to catch up. At Revenge Sins, we've learned to recognize that particular kind of silence. Morgan Hale is an ICU nurse in Seattle, and what happened to her matters because it wasn't one big explosion at first. It was the slow realization that the people calling her family had been treating her like a resource, not a person. This is where she begins. After 2 a.m, my hands already knew the steps before my brain could argue. Bag her. Good seal. The respiratory therapist nodded, and the mask was in place. I watched the chest rise, watched the monitor, watched the line of numbers that decided whether a person stayed with us or slipped away. Push the epi. I told Lena, the nurse at my side. She had the syringe ready. She scanned it first, the way we always did. Scan the med, scan the patient, scan the dose, every controlled substance accounted for, every milligram traceable. No shortcuts. No, I'll fix it later. The system wouldn't let you. And honestly, neither would I. Lena's eyes flicked up. You want another line? Yeah, get it. Someone called out. Pulse check. The room tightened for a second. We moved in a rhythm that was almost boring when it went right, and terrifying when it didn't. I looked at the patient's face, the slackness that happens when the body is done pretending it can do this on its own. Come on, Lena muttered under her breath. Not to anyone. Not as a prayer. Just as a habit. We got a rhythm back. The monitor changed. The resident exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for an hour. Okay, he said, voice low. We're back. My shoulders didn't drop. They never did right away. You don't celebrate in the room. You finish the work. I stepped out to the nurse's station to document while the adrenaline was still clean in my bloodstream. Charting is part of the job the public never sees. The paperwork matters because the details matter. In the ICU, you can't just be right in spirit. You have to be right on record. My phone was in my locker, but it had been buzzing earlier. I'd felt it against the metal through my scrubs when I walked past. I told myself I'd check it when I could. I always said that. When I finally opened the locker, the screen lit up with a fraud alert from my credit card. Unauthorized charge $8,420. I stared at it until the number started to look like a typo. Then I tapped. It wasn't a random online charge. It had a description, airline tickets, international. My throat went dry. I scrolled once, then again, like scrolling harder would change what I was seeing. Passenger names, Charles Hale, Diane Hale, Ethan Hale, Riley Hale, and 2 more names I didn't recognize at first, the kind of names that show up in your mother's Christmas card photos because they're practically family. Not mine. I stood there in the hallway outside the locker room, and the hospital felt loud again. The monitors, the wheels of a cart. Someone laughing at the end of the corridor like life wasn't always hanging by a thread. My fingers shook, and that made me angrier than the charge did. I could hold pressure on a bleeding artery and keep my hands steady. I could push drugs that could kill someone if I got the dose wrong, but my own family could do this. And my body reacted like I'd been hit. I heard my own voice. Quiet, like I didn't want the building to know. They didn't even put me on the ticket. Lena walked up beside me with a stack of fresh IV tubing. She took one look at my face. Morgan. I turned the screen toward her. She didn't say much. She just stared, then looked up at me like she was trying to figure out if she should hug me or help me hide a body. What do you want to do? She started, then stopped herself. No, forget that. Come sit. I didn't sit. My thumb scrolled down, just to see if it was only that one charge, and the list kept going. At Revenge Sins. We don't hear panic in her voice here. We hear something colder taking its place. I swallowed, forced air into my lungs, and locked my phone screen like that could lock the damage. Give me 5 minutes. I told Lena, then I'm calling the bank. And if you stay with Revenge Sins, we'll keep bringing you stories told this plainly no performance. Just the moment someone finally stops absorbing what they were never meant to carry. I didn't wait until I got home. I stepped into an empty consult room, shut the door, and called the number on the back of my card. My hands were steady now. Too steady. Thank you for calling Card Services. How can I assist you tonight? There's an international airline charge on my account for $8,420. I didn't authorize it. Let me verify your identity. I answered the questions automatically. Address, date of birth. The last legitimate purchase I remembered making. There was a pause while he pulled up the account. I do see the airline transaction. It triggered a fraud alert due to the amount and location. Location. It was processed through a travel vendor in North Carolina. Of course it was. I need to review the previous 4 months of activity. I told him. I'm seeing smaller charges that aren't mine. More typing. A longer pause this time. I'm noticing a pattern of online retail purchases and auto insurance payments. They appear consistent over several billing cycles. Consistent with what? With autofill or a stored card profile? I closed my eyes. Ethan had helped my parents set up their online accounts years ago. He'd sat at their kitchen table, typing like he owned the place. Can you tell if an authorized user was added recently? Another pause. There was an authorized user reinstated approximately 4 months ago. My stomach dropped. Name, Ethan Hale. I removed him 2 years ago. It appears the request was submitted through your online portal using your credentials. My credentials. I leaned back against the wall. The fluorescent light in the room buzzed softly overhead. What do I need to do to dispute this? Because the suspected user is a family member. We require a signed affidavit of identity theft and a filed police report in order to proceed with chargeback recovery. Police report. Yes, ma'am. Once the affidavit is submitted and provisional credit is issued, the case may be referred for investigation. Referred to who? To law enforcement. I pressed my thumb into my palm until it hurt. If I file that report, can I withdraw it later? Once a report is filed and the matter becomes criminal, it is prosecuted by the state. The decision to proceed would not be solely yours, not solely mine. How long do I have to decide? 72 hours before the airline charge posts fully and additional recovery options become limited. I ended the call and just stood there for a second. 4 months. Not one reckless decision. Not a drunken swipe. 4 months of small, careful charges. Restaurant tabs. Sports equipment. Insurance premiums. $12,860 in total. I unlocked my phone and opened our family group chat. Amalfi Coast photos from some influencer Riley followed. Links to beachside villas. Can't wait. She'd written 3 days ago. I typed Ethan's name into my contacts and hit call. He answered on the 3rd ring. Hey, sis. What's up? What did you do? A beat? What are you talking about? You reinstated yourself as an authorized user on my card. Silence. Then a short laugh. Come on, it's not like that. It's exactly like that. We were going to talk to you. When? Before the trip. You already bought the tickets. That was temporary. We just needed to move fast. With my card, it's family. I was going to pay you back. When? Another pause. You're overreacting. I looked down at the screen, at the total balance that didn't belong to me. I have 72 hours, I told him quietly. After that, it won't be my decision anymore. He didn't respond right away. What do you mean? Not your decision. The next night, I was back in the ICU before my 72 hours were halfway gone. We were short-staffed, flu season creeping in early, beds full, monitors never quiet. I was titrating a norepinephrine drip for a septic patient when my phone vibrated in my pocket. I didn't look at it. I never do in a patient room. Every med gets scanned, every bag logged. If I adjust a dose by even 1 milligram, it's charted, pressure's holding. Lena murmured. Eyes on the screen. Keep it steady, I told her. We stabilized him. I stepped out to update the chart and finally checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Ethan, 2 from my mother, 1 text from Mom. You are humiliating this family over a misunderstanding. Another buzz. Dad, call me before you do something stupid. I leaned against the counter and stared at the word stupid. In here, if I make a mistake, someone can die. Out there, they treat $12,860 like a rounding error. Lena came up beside me with a cup of stale coffee. You look like you're about to throw that phone through a wall. I might. She waited. Didn't push. They reinstated themselves on my card 4 months ago. I said quietly, all of it, not just the trip. Her eyebrows lifted. That's not an accident. No. What are you going to do? I watched a nurse across the station scan a vial of fentanyl before drawing it up. The scanner beeped, logged, tracked. In here, if I don't document something, it's on me. I said, there's no gray area. And out there? Apparently there is. My phone buzzed again. This time it was the fraud specialist from the bank returning my earlier message. I stepped into an empty hallway to answer. Ms. Hale, have you made a decision regarding the affidavit? I'm reviewing it. As a reminder, once you sign and file a police report, the chargeback process will begin. The matter may be referred to the state for prosecution. And I can't undo that. Not unilaterally. No, I let that sit between us. Email it. I told him. Back at the nurse's station, I opened the document on my phone. Affidavit of identity theft. My name. Ethan's name. The amount spelled out in full. I called Ethan one more time. He answered immediately this time. Tell me you haven't done it. I haven't signed yet. Good. Good. Let's just talk about this. We've been talking. You're my sister, and you used my login credentials. It was just easier that way. For who? Silence. Then, softer. Morgan, if you file that report. It's criminal. I know. You'd really let the state come after me. I'm not letting anyone do anything, I said. And I was surprised at how calm I sounded. I'm telling the truth about what happened. That's the same thing. No, it isn't. He exhaled sharply. You're blowing up the whole family over a trip. It's not about the trip. He didn't argue that. I ended the call and opened the affidavit again. My thumb hovered over the signature line longer than I expected. I thought about our parents' kitchen table, about every time I'd covered a bill because it was easier than listening to the guilt. In the ICU, if I hesitate too long, someone codes, I signed. The confirmation email came through within minutes. Affidavit received. Please file police report to proceed. I stood there, phone still in my hand, and felt something shift. Not relief, not triumph, just finality. Lena glanced over at me. You okay? I signed it. She nodded once. No lecture, no cheerleading. Okay, she said softly. Then we take care of the next thing. I filed the police report the next morning before my shift. The officer at the front desk didn't look surprised. He handed me a form and pointed to a chair. Identity theft involving a known party. Yes. He nodded once, like that explained more than I wanted it to. I filled in Ethan's name in block letters. The amount, $12,860. Dates, transactions. I kept my handwriting neat. It felt important that it be neat. When I left the station, the air felt colder than it had when I walked in. By the time I got to the hospital, my phone was already buzzing. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Dad followed. Then Ethan. I silenced it and walked into the unit. Around noon. The charge nurse tapped my shoulder. Director wants to see you. My stomach tightened. Now? She didn't say urgent. Just when you're free. I finished hanging an antibiotic and headed to the administrative office. Director Palmer looked up from her desk when I stepped in. Close the door. Morgan. I did. She folded her hands. Your mother contacted the hospital yesterday. Of course she did. She expressed concerns about your mental health. I stared at her. She said you've been under unusual stress, that you might be making impulsive decisions. I let out a slow breath. Did she mention what those decisions were? She implied you were involved in some kind of financial dispute. I am... Director Palmer studied me for a moment, then glanced at a file on her desk. Your performance reviews are solid. No medication errors, no complaints. Nothing that suggests instability. That's because I'm not unstable. She sounded persuasive. She's very good at that. There was a small pause. The kind that isn't hostile, just heavy. I'm not here to discipline you, Director Palmer said. I'm here because I need to know if anything outside of work is affecting patient care. It isn't. Can you say that without hesitation? Yes. She held my gaze another second, then nodded. Then we're done here. I stood, then hesitated. I'm filing a police report against my brother for identity theft. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. That explains the urgency in her voice. I didn't tell her to call you. I assumed as much. I walked back into the unit with my pulse still elevated. Lena was charting at the station. You look like you just ran a marathon. My mother tried to have me labeled unstable. Lena blinked. That escalated. She thinks if I look irrational. The report looks irrational. And are you? No. She leaned back in her chair, then let them scramble. My phone buzzed again. Ethan this time. I stepped into the supply room to answer. You filed it. Yes. You're actually going through with this. It's already through. You've ruined everything. I closed my eyes for a second. I documented what happened. I told him. That's all. 3 days after I filed the report, I got a call from a detective in Charlotte. His voice was calm, almost bored. Ms. Hale, we're reviewing the documentation connected to your affidavit. We've identified transactions that passed through a joint checking account. Joint with who? Charles Hale. I didn't answer right away. I was sitting in my car outside the hospital, engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel. My father. Yes. Ma'am. Are you saying he was involved? I'm saying funds moved through an account bearing his name. There's a difference. I understood that. Legally. It matters. When will he be notified? He may already be. The call ended quickly after that. Efficient. Clinical. I sat there a minute longer, then went inside. By mid-afternoon, my phone lit up with Dad's name. I stepped outside to take it. What have you done? He started. No greeting. I filed a police report. You dragged my name into this. I didn't add your name to anything. They're looking at a joint account. Morgan. I didn't know about that account. Well, you do now. There was strain in his voice I hadn't heard before. Not anger. Not exactly. Something closer to fear. Why was your name on an account Ethan was using? Silence. It was for convenience, he said finally. Years ago. He needed help establishing credit. And you never closed it. It wasn't active. It was active enough. He exhaled hard. My firm has opened an internal review. My chest tightened. Because of this. Compliance was notified when my name appeared in a police report tied to financial misconduct. That's standard. I know it's standard, he snapped, then softened. I know. What are they reviewing? Expense reports. Client hospitality entries. I pictured him in his office, tie loosened, reading spreadsheets the way I read medication charts. They found something. He didn't answer right away. They're questioning about $18,400 in reimbursements. For what? He hesitated. I covered some of Ethan's shortfalls. It was temporary. I reclassified them. I intended to correct it. With client funds. It wasn't theft, he insisted. It was a timing issue. It's still misrepresentation. His breathing came through the phone. Uneven. They're placing me on administrative leave while they conduct a compliance audit. I leaned back against the brick wall of the hospital entrance. So Ethan didn't just use my card, I said quietly. He used you. That's not fair. It's accurate. Another pause. I was trying to protect him, Dad muttered. And now, They're reviewing everything. I closed my eyes for a second. I didn't put your name in that report. I said, I wrote down what happened to me. I know. He sounded smaller than I'd ever heard him. This isn't just about Ethan anymore. He added, No, I said, it isn't. Dad showed up at my apartment on a Tuesday night. No warning, just a knock that was too firm to ignore. When I opened the door, he looked older, not in a dramatic way, just tired. His shirt was wrinkled, and his tie was gone, a rare sight for a man who wore professional composure like armor. Can I come in? He asked. I stepped aside, the silence between us heavy and clinical. He didn't sit. He stood near the kitchen counter, looking at the half-unpacked boxes that signaled my departure from the life they thought they controlled. The firm completed the initial phase of the internal audit. He began, his voice flat, and they found the hospitality reimbursements. $18,400. They are categorizing it as a misallocation of client funds. That is generous, I said. In my world, we call that theft. They are allowing me to retire early rather than pursue termination for cause. They are protecting their reputation. Morgan. That is all. He set a thick envelope on the counter. I didn't touch it. What is that? A cashier's check for $12,860? The exact amount you documented in your report. I looked at the envelope, then back at him. If you think this settles the fraud case, you are mistaken. I am not giving this to the credit card company. If I do, it looks like a private settlement to hush up a criminal investigation. That is called obstruction. He nodded slowly. I know. I have spoken to counsel. The bank has already issued your provisional credit and initiated the chargeback process. They will pursue Ethan for recovery through their own legal channels. The state's case is independent of this. Then why give me this because... He said, his voice cracking for the first time. This is not for the airline tickets. This is for the 8 years you spent covering Ethan's shortfalls, for the car repairs, the insurance premiums, and the loans we let you think were your responsibility. This is a reimbursement for your life. Morgan, not a bribe for your silence. I finally picked up the envelope. The paper felt cold. Your name was on the joint account they traced. Dad. Compliance caught you because Ethan's fraud created a paper trail that led straight to your office. I enabled him, he admitted. I ignored the red flags because it was easier than facing the truth. In the intensive care unit, you are taught that silence is dangerous. I am learning that now. My license is under review by the state board. 100% of my consulting privileges are gone. Your mother thinks you are punishing us, he continued. She does not understand that once you signed that affidavit, it became the state versus Ethan. She thinks you can still fix it. I cannot, I said firmly, and even if I could, I would not. Accountability is not a punishment. It is a baseline. He didn't expect forgiveness. He just stood there, a man whose 30-year career had collapsed because he chose comfort over integrity. I should have protected my daughter, he whispered as he reached the door. Not my son's lies. After he left, I stared at the check. $12,860. It was the price of 8 years of my labor, returned to me. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt the quiet, steady weight of a boundary finally held. The check sat on my kitchen table for 3 days. I didn't rush to deposit it. I didn't rush to return it. I just let it exist. At work, life kept moving. Are you testing for CCRN this cycle? Lena asked while we were restocking syringes. Yeah, after everything. Especially after everything. She smiled a little. Good. Studying for the critical care registered nurse exam gave my brain somewhere else to go. Ventilator settings, hemodynamic monitoring, drug titration protocols, things with clear answers. One night, while reviewing practice questions in the break room, my phone buzzed with a LinkedIn notification. Ethan Hale updated his employment status. I stared at it longer than I meant to. Warehouse associate, temporary. No dramatic caption. No explanation. Just a job title. Lena walked in, glanced at my face. Family. Yeah. You okay? I'm fine. And I was not happy. Not sad. Just neutral. A week later, I passed the CCRN exam. The email confirmation came through during my shift. Certified, I murmured under my breath. Lena leaned over my shoulder. There it is. We didn't make a big deal of it. We still had patients to manage, drips to adjust, notes to chart. A month after that, I was promoted to charge nurse for the night shift. When I finally deposited the cashier's check, I didn't send it to the credit card company. I opened a separate account instead. $12,860. Clean. Documented. Mine to decide. I did not rush to spend the money. Instead, I opened a separate high-yield savings account and deposited the $12,860. It sat there, a clean and documented sum, gaining interest while the legal gears turned elsewhere. In the intensive care unit, we learn that the most critical phase of healing is often the quietest. I poured my energy into the critical care registered nurse certification. I studied ventilator waveforms and hemodynamic titration while my family's world continued to fracture. My phone buzzed frequently with notifications from the prosecutor's office. The case against Ethan was moving forward negotiations, potential restitution agreements, and the possibility of a misdemeanor plea. 100% of my focus stayed on my clinical practice. A family group text arrived inviting me to a healing dinner. I typed a simple response. I am focusing on my career right now. I wish you all well. No apologies. No explanations. The police report remained in my desk drawer, a quiet marker of the day I stopped being a safety net and started being a person. The official notice about Dad came through family gossip before he told me himself. Uncle Mark called first. Your father's firm announced his retirement, he said carefully. Effective immediately. Retirement. I repeated. They cited compliance restructuring. I thanked him and hung up. Dad called that evening. It's final, he said. The internal audit concluded I violated client hospitality reporting standards. They're not pursuing criminal charges, just separation. And the joint account. It's under review as part of Ethan's case. My attorney advised full cooperation. He sounded exhausted, not defensive anymore, just worn down. I never thought it would touch my license. He admitted, reputation matters in accounting. Once your name appears in a police file, even tangentially, it triggers everything. I know. You were right to document what happened. That landed heavier than I expected. I didn't do it to take you down, I said quietly. I know. There was a pause. Your mother still thinks this could have been handled privately. It wasn't private, I replied. It was fraud. He didn't argue. After the call, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, reviewing staffing assignments for the night shift. Charge nurse now, certified, accountable. My phone buzzed with a court scheduling update for Ethan's preliminary hearing. I closed the notification and finished the roster. In the ICU, when something destabilizes, you don't panic, you correct, you document, you move forward. Outside of it, I was finally learning to do the same. Ethan entered a plea agreement, misdemeanor fraud, a court-mandated restitution plan, 3 years of probation. I did not attend the hearing. My attorney told me my presence was not required, and for the first time in my life, I chose not to witness my brother's consequences. I had already seen enough. Dad sent a short text afterward. It is done, I replied. Okay. A few weeks later, I ran into Riley at a grocery store. She looked thinner, less polished, her influencer glow replaced by the gray fatigue of reality. Morgan, she started, shifting her weight. We are trying to get back on track. Ethan is working in logistics now. 100% of his paycheck goes toward the bank's recovery. I hope you find your way, I said. She swallowed hard. We never thought you would go that far. Morgan, to the police, to the firm. I did not go anywhere. Riley. I just stopped moving out of the way. There was nothing else to say. She turned down another aisle, and I walked out into the Seattle rain. Back at my apartment, I sat at my window with the cashier's check from the savings account. $12,860. I drove to the hospital foundation office. I want to establish a grant, I told the administrator, for nurses supporting financially dependent family members. Call it the Boundary Grant. The paperwork took less than 60 minutes. As I signed the final line, I felt the last cord snap. I did not feel victorious. I felt neutral, balanced. Morgan Hale used to measure her worth by how much she absorbed for others. Now, I measure it by what I refuse to carry. Peace is no longer a negotiation. It is a requirement. Final visual. My phone buzzed with a family invitation. I deleted it, stepped onto my balcony, and watched the sunrise. 100% of my life finally belonged to me.